Welcome. This will be the first of a number of explanatory videos detailing the backgrounds of the Void. Before we get started, yes, that is my real accent. I know sounding like a farmer isn't too conducive to a science fiction setting, which is why I didn't narrate it myself. There is a reason why David Prowse didn't get to use his voice on Darth Vader, and that is it. Also, while we're at it, do please like and subscribe. I hope to monetize this channel, so that will help immensely. I'd like to be able to spend more time in this, hopefully full time. So help me make that a reality. It's a small ask, but with a big impact. Now, I thought I'd start with the overall concept. It seems a logical place to start. The initial concept was something I'd wanted to do for a while, a science fiction epic. I didn't want to do one based around a more esoteric idea, but one based around the power struggles of humanity in a futuristic setting. One thing I always felt put people off sci-fi was the perception that it can be rather cold, concerned about grand ideas and not people. This isn't true of the genre as a whole, but that perception does persist. It's pretty much the sole opinion of far too many of my friends. I wanted to do something that was about humanity itself. I often use fiction to carry messages, though I'm not going to spell them out. I'm not exactly subtle in my messenger, so there's no need to hammer it home. Primarily, I wanted it to be about power games, betrayals, assassinations, and all manner of hideous malfeasance. You know, the playbook of the entirety of human history. I know the initial impression is going to be to compare it to Star Trek. This is inevitable, but it is not done to ride off the popularity of that series. The Void deviates from that idea seriously as it goes on, but for the first few episodes, it is going to invite that comparison. Why? Ask yourself this: what's the best way to have characters interact with each other across the vast gulf of space as different empires come to conflict with each other? Firstly, you need a big ass ship armed to the teeth, and you need some form of militaristic setup. Not necessarily an army, but some organisation that provides a reason to fight. So, we have a hero ship. This is a pretty standard trope, but it does serve a very useful purpose. It's why it became a trope in the first place. It also provides a familiar place for the narrative to start, and that is a very useful way to attract a broader audience. Throwing people into deep lore too quickly can instantly put them off. It's much better to start building simple foundations and then build further upon them. Don't worry though, shit gets wild later on. Another comparison that is going to get made is one that will be made when people read it beyond a certain point, and that is Game of Thrones. There might not be an immediate comparison, but I can see it being made because of the multiple character narratives and gruesome power plays. But this is, again, not intentional. It's simply because I'm dipping into a similar well as George R.R. Martin, and that's the well of history. If anything, I took more inspiration from my Claudius, an old 70s BBC drama that my father was a massive fan of, and hence I was exposed to it as well. It's effectively a stage play, as the BBC never did throw money at anything that was worthwhile, but the story and acting are still good even by modern standards. Just don't expect sweeping vistas. You'll start seeing some of that influence in the story, especially if you're familiar with Roman history. I've received comparisons to other fictional universes, most of them contemporary surprisingly, but these are the ones I think will invite the most comparisons. But it's a bit too violent and sweary for Trek, and too futuristic for Westeros. The Void is its own animal, and it is feral. It is also as much a horror as it is science fiction, which is another genre I have great love for. I will go through the many sources of inspiration I have used for the Void in due course, but there are so many of them it would be polluting the purpose of this video. But I can use a simple comics comparison. I've always been a more 2000 AD fan than Marvel and DC, and if you don't know what 2000 AD is, go out and buy those comics now. So, the Void is about power struggles. Can you elaborate? Well, yes, I can. The setting is 2,000 years in the future, thereabouts. Humanity has survived a very close brush with extinction and has recovered. Multiple star empires have flourished and are locked in a cold war with each other, but the same hubris that killed Earth in the first place still resides in the species it gave birth to. It was corporations and, more generally, the naked lust for profit that ended it, but paradoxically, it was also the corporations that saved humanity by taking them to the stars. However, the concept of nation states evaporated once there were no more nations, and the new empires are corporate in nature, and these have become the new power blocks. The drive to survive kick-started much technological progress, and this eventually led to the corporate wars, which ended in a stalemate between the 6 surviving corporations. Since then, one has become a theocracy, and another has become the first democracy to exist since old Earth. The background is given a little more detail in the introduction video, so I suggest you watch that for more. Though I do paint these corporate empires as being craven and callous, and they are, I do try to give the factions their own uniqueness. I try not to make any of the villains cartoonish in any way. I try to make them seem more natural and even sympathetic. Conteal is the most outright megalomaniacal, and I do enjoy writing him, simply because he is so immoral. But others, like Victor Heller, are more tragic. He may commit atrocities, but as the story goes on, you realise his history has moulded him that way, and that he could have turned out very different indeed. Yu Quan is another, a person who started out trying to change things for the better, but has settled for trying to direct the corporation into the least harmful options. The historical influences here do show as well. The Teal Corporation takes influence from the Roman dynasties, though it takes many cues from contemporary America. The Heller Corporation was inspired more by Tudor-era bloodlines and takes much from our obsession with the big pharma concept. The Young Corporation is a hybrid of feudal China and modern boardroom politics. Then there is the Aleph Corporation, which takes from the modern tech bro idiom, where the tyrants masquerade as progressives. The good guys are the Republic, and they are the democratic contingent of the future. I don't try and present them as a perfect society, just preferable to the alternatives. But anyway, the hero ship and its protagonists are part of this faction, and they are the through thread of the narrative, its structural core. Carl Schaefer and Ellen Voight might be the key protagonists, but they are far from the only ones. I've tried to infuse every character with engaging backstories and story arcs, and I've tried to be as inclusive as possible, partly because part of the main theme is about diversity, being our strength as a species, but also because it tends to lend more variety in storylines. I'll need to wrap this up shortly, but I will cover many topics in separate videos. There's too much to cover in this runtime alone. I would like to say that this story is going to be very violent and graphic in nature. I don't want anyone going into expecting it to be some neutered fiction. I try not to be exploitative, but some of the violence is going to make you wince. Judging where that line between justifiable and exploitative is difficult to judge at times, and I do try to be sympathetic to this, but sometimes it can make a better point to be transgressive. That said, if you know what a bloody eagle is, you know what to expect. Before I go, I am going to badger you to like and subscribe. It's the YouTuber's bread and butter, and it's why we all harp on about it. You hit like enough times, I can monetize the channel and afford to do this full time. We can't provide all this content for free, and the price here is likes and subscribes. It's a bargain in many ways, so bash those buttons with all your might. Anyway, that's all for now. Signing off from the abyssal depths.